Okay, so let's just bring ourselves into the body, starting with our breath. So just find your breath where it is right now. You can close your eyes and you can just feel and wait for your breath to come in. With a sense of warmth, we connect to the breath, and a sense of spaciousness in the heart. So we're opening to bring some space into the body. Now feeling our nice straight spine and the strength and support of the spine, and then relaxing and softening all the muscles around the body. Now we're going to take 3 deep breaths together, and feeling any tension in the body, we're going to focus our attention on releasing that as we exhale, but we're not forcing it. So let's breathe in now together. Nice, deep, long, slow breath. And focusing on where you feel tension, relaxing around that area, inviting it to soften, and then slowly release your breath through your nose. Another deep breath in. Slowly releasing it, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the arms at your side or resting on your thighs. One more deep breath in. And then just come and feel the whole body as you exhale slowly. Feel the stillness in the body sitting here right now. And as we listen to the slides, we can just keep our attention on the breath coming in and out. And that will be our anchor to remain as present as we can to listen to the slides. Because of course, this again, we can practice mindfulness while we're listening to the presentation. Our mind is going to wander, of course, so we can just practice bringing it back and using the breath and relaxing and softening. When you notice that your mind has wandered, bring yourself back and then just keep your back nice and straight and just rest on the awareness of your breath and listening to the slides. Okay, so we have a lot to cover today, so I'm just going to move through as quickly as we can since we started late. Of course, every week I like to review mindfulness because after 8 weeks, it would be nice to have a real good idea or understanding of the principles and the foundations that we're covering. And as we go week to week in between, the most important part is that we're applying those principles to our practice. Last week, we emphasized and discussed the importance of continuing to try to establish a practice. So hopefully you were able to do at least a 10-minute practice a day. You could have done 5 minutes in 2 sessions. But that's what we're trying to establish in between learning about what mindfulness is, so that most importantly, you're trying it out, you're investigating it yourself, and if there's obstacles that arise, we discussed last week at the end that we wanted to kind of really become mindful, because part of mindfulness is knowing the mind. So when we set it to meditate, we see, okay, here's the habits. And those come really up when we really start to establish a practice. So we work through those. And so paying attention to the obstacles that arise and expecting many obstacles, but still making those the small effort to meditate daily, even in little periods. And that does a lot, trust me. But most importantly, you want to experiment with what kind of benefits you're getting. So others can tell you it's great for them and it works for them, but you're not really going to be motivated if you don't get the benefits yourself. And the benefits come by training the mind and by deliberately sustaining your attention and concentration, so that those things that cause suffering or cause us to have different states of emotions and mind states coming from the mind, we're working that out by developing that concentration and that attention to the breath, which is calming and stabilizing to the mind and for the body. Okay, so let's just go through and review. So mindfulness meditation we talked about is also called vipassana. That's the Pali language that was used over 2,500 years ago. And the best interpretation, one way of interpreting vipassana is clear seeing. So that's why it's sometimes called insight meditation. So mindfulness meditation, another way or another interpretation, is the intentional, accepting, and non-judgmental focus of one's attention on the breath, the body, the sensations in the body, the emotions, and thoughts that are occurring in the present moment. So I just set up here to look at the foundations on looking at it from how we're building our way through the foundations, and expanding our attention outward slowly to include the other levels. So we have started with the past, we're on week 5 now, so we've been doing mindfulness of body practice. That includes breath. So mindfulness of breath, which we started with, which is our main anchor. So we don't leave that. We just start to slowly include other states as well, or expand our attention to include the sensations in the body. And we did the body scan, which is also mindfulness of all the various parts of the body. And Roma will tell you that mindfulness of body also includes mindful movement and postures. Mindfulness of body is also discussed in the Satipatthana Sutta of being contemplating the 4 elements or the properties of the body. So that would be the solid, the liquid, gas or air. So we could say it in elements: the water, the earth, the air, and the fire. And that's all part of the body, the elements. And we also, mindfulness of body also includes the impermanent nature, so contemplating the impermanent nature. Because we're not looking to attach a sense of self to the body, which is part of freeing the mind. So we're contemplating aging, we're contemplating decay, death, and all those inevitable parts of the body. So mindfulness of feelings is the second foundation. That includes what we categorize as pleasant feelings, neutral feelings, and unpleasant feelings. And also the impermanent nature of our feelings as well. The paying attention to when they arise, being aware of when they arise. This is part of how we regulate the emotions. Instead of being reactive and automatic, we have a mindfulness of them, that there's a feeling arising. And of course, we're not judging that. That's very important. So it's the attitude that we're bringing to allow the feelings to be as they are. And we're also watching and trying to maintain and sustain our attention and concentration on the full duration of the experience of the emotions during our practice, which is not easy. So we talked about the cause of suffering, and its root cause really is ignorance, but it's desire. So it's the clinging. So when we give space to our emotions, they loosen that grip that we have to them, and that sense of either liking or not liking, and the suffering that that can cause. So next is the mindfulness of mind, which is the third foundation, and mind states. So we'll be including that before the end of the 8 weeks. We'll be doing some introduction to mindfulness of mind and mind states, which is different states of mind include what we talked about, craving, and when we're in aversion, or when we have self-aversion or aversion to certain things, and how the mind behaves, and how that reflects in our behavior. Being attentive is a state of mind. So when we're concentrating our attention, that's also a state of mind. So you may observe that your mind is very focused. Or wandering states, your mind may feel have states of being very open or very narrow, and deluded, really. So we'll talk more about that as we progress towards the end. And also, there's mindfulness of mental qualities and hindrances. Can't say that. So we'll get into that again, probably touch that very lightly, because we're really trying to just see what all the foundations are, but we're staying and establishing from the ground up and building our way. At the top, I put here, the main purpose is, as we're freeing the mind, we're starting to see more clearly into the true nature of all these things that we experience. So the body, the feelings, the activities of the mind, and through all that, by applying the attitudes or the principles to these experiences of non-judgment and so forth, we're developing what we talked about, the inner heart, the petals of the inner heart, or the lotus. And those qualities are your innate goodness, we could say. Some people put it that way. But it's your true nature, and the true nature of all things, which is love, compassion, and wisdom. So through all this, that's why Buddha said it was a direct path to self-realization. And so we really need to keep that in mind, that we are developing this through following the practice as it's instructed. And it's very simple, but very powerful at the same time. So the purpose of mindfulness and meditation is to discipline and liberate the mind from desire and the causes of suffering. Knowing the mind, in order to do this, we need to know the mind. We need to know our own habits by paying attention to them when we sit down to do our practice. And knowing that when our mind is wandering away, and training training to bring it back. So by establishing a daily mindfulness meditation practice and developing the ability to sustain concentration and attention on present moment experiences without judgment, um, this is the training aspect of it. So when we look at that, when things arise in our day-to-day and we've developed that muscle, this is a mindfulness muscle, training the mind and concentration and attention. If we develop that muscle and it gets stronger and stronger and things arise, we can place our attention where we need to be. So things that maybe people need our attention and we'd like to be there for them, even though that we may have aversion to suffering or, seeing somebody suffer and that makes us uncomfortable, we can still be with our discomfort, but still be available for somebody else. And that can expand and really benefit others. So freeing the mind, of course, is the ultimate purpose of doing these practices. So by focusing on bringing the qualities of attention to your present moment experiences, this gradually replaces desire or mind habits of aversion and clinging and to experiences and allows the inner heart qualities such as compassion, love, and wisdom to develop and grow. So we're going to go over the 7 attitudes that cultivate mindfulness. We briefly covered them, but I really wanted to just kind of talk about them more in depth because when we sit down to look at our breath, we're not just, there's the breath, we're bringing a warmth and we're bringing a spaciousness and a kindness, and it doesn't come natural. So we have to recognize when we're not allowing, recognize when we're bored or sleepy or having those different things come up, and notice that and also bring our attention fully back and exercise that. So these qualities are very important to remember what you're bringing to your practice. So these 7 attitudes are coming from Jon Kabat-Zinn, the ones I'm going to talk about. So he founded the Stress Reduction Clinic at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, and he's famous for structuring the 8-week course called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, MBSR. So the 7 attitudes are beginner's mind, non-judgment, patience, acceptance, non-striving, trust, and letting go. And I just have a little quote here from it. Says, make a list of what is really important to you and then embody it. So really, mindfulness is about embodying these qualities that cultivate true mindfulness of what mindfulness is. It's paying attention in a particular way. It's not just paying attention. It has these warm qualities. And it's these qualities that actually create the space that nurture your inner heart and bring out your true nature. And we less and less identify with our experiences in the body, in the emotions, and in the mind, and more identify as the witness, the kind witness that allows all this to happen. Okay, so let's just talk about non-judging, the first attitudinal foundation. So the judgments of mind tend to dominate our mind during our practice, and they make it very hard for us to find any peace. So we're all very familiar with the inner judge. It can be extremely unhelpful in the context of meditation, bringing that judgment to your experience of the breath and of the feelings. However, premature judgment and rejection of experience is extremely common. So we have to expect that this is going to be there. This is one of the things that we're noticing as a habit. It's part of the mind that's conditioned to label, this is good, this is bad, and this is what is behind our desire, our aversion, our clinging. Of course, we cling to what we find as good and push away and suppress what is bad. And this causes inner conflict and turmoil. So we have to change that. We have to actually not have, we have to be mindful that this is happening, and then come back to just allowing and and creating a new habit of allowing an emotion to just be an emotion, a sensation to just be a sensation. So we are being with whatever arises and takes place in our practice, and we're training in, to train in and requires much requires much gentleness and patience to practice non-judging. So that's what we have to really understand. This is not going to come easy. It's something that we do over and over. It's part of the actual practice. We use our breath to guide us in softening and opening our hearts when we're judging, to bring us back to allowing in a gentle way. We use our breath to anchor us into the present moment, and can I allow what's here to be just as it is? Always remember, if it feels too much, then we keep the breath as our major focus in the forefront, and whatever experience we're having that we may find overwhelming, in the back. And then we just kind of gradually include it as we can. I mean, if we're having fear, for instance, fear, many of us have aversion to fear, and we'll do anything to get away from it. So you can't expect someone to just say, well, I'm not going to judge fear, I'm just going to sit down. You're going to notice judgment of fear is there, and you're going to notice, I have aversion to this feeling of fear. And there's going to be many thought forms that present themselves to make the fear worse. And we have to be aware, fear thoughts are happening. Bring your attention back to the breath to stabilize in the present moment. Because, for instance, fear can actually elevate into delusion and having, starting to think things that aren't even happening in reality, that, imagining things are going wrong and that stuff. So it can really take over our mind. And it's a powerful feeling. So we have to slowly start to open up to not judge it. All right, so second is patience. Obviously, we need patience here. To be patient is simply to be completely in each moment and accepting it in its fullness. To keep bringing the mind back again to the breath, back to sensation of body, requires tremendous patience and perseverance. This is the working ground of a meditation practice. And one helpful thing you may try when you're feeling overwhelmed is to pause and ask yourself, what is here right now? And can I just let it be with kindness? That, and place your hand on your heart. You can do this as a pause throughout the day. So you might just notice that your mind is going around, or you're just feeling a little bit anxious or something along that line. And know that's a sign that possibly something's there and you're not comfortable with it. So you can just say, what is really here right now? And can I allow it to be? And put your hand on your heart and really stop that inner aversion or battle that may be causing you to be spinning thoughts or rushing around. And you can just pause and then change your pace and move on. I find that very helpful. So you can place your hand on your heart, take a few deep breaths if you're really feeling disturbed, to let go of the tension in your body, because the tension in your body is also reflecting what we're struggling against in our experience. So even just softening there can affect the mind and soften the mind to just open to what's there. And then go back to doing what you're doing. So I said here, I do this daily, especially when I'm feeling over speedy, or anxious. And I just have a quote here. Patience is not the ability to wait, it's the ability to wait while being loving and kind. Patience is power. Patience is not an absence of action, rather it is timing it, waiting on the right time to act for the right principles and in the right way. So we're not just speed, trying to get somewhere. All right, the third foundation is beginner's mind. The nature of the untrained mind, before we train it, we could also call it our conditioned mind, will only be capable of seeing things based on our past experiences and memories. We've had many held but unconscious ideas and judgments about those experiences, being, that experience was terrible, or, that time of my life was great and I'll never get it back. It could be that type of thinking about our experiences that are kind of very unconscious. We don't realize that. But we're projecting that onto our current experiences. And we will discover this is very limiting and unhelpful to clear seeing. And it prevents us from seeing things as they really are. Approaching each experience in meditation as if it were your first time, building from the ground up, from the breath, from the body, and asking of yourself, what is really happening? These are hallmarks of training in a beginner's mind. The fourth attitude or foundation is trust. And I have written a lot about trust here. I find trust, I wanted to really emphasize trust today. Trust is the thread that helps you to establish and maintain your daily meditation practice. So this is what we're doing now. We're coming across the obstacles as we are establishing our meditation daily practice of training the mind. So trust will help us do that. And how does that work? Well, we have to expect that all kinds of obstacles may present themselves when we're trying to establish our practice. Last week we talked about the common challenge we all face. That was finding the time and the list of things to do that the mind starts to present to you. Actually, this is really not an obstacle. If you can see, this is just an observation and awareness. If you were going to look at this from the principles of mindfulness, if you were sitting down to do your practice and a list of things come up that you need to do that need to be done, and you just can't sit here, and the mind doesn't is very agitated, that's not really an obstacle. It would be, we would apply the principles of practice to that, so we could just observe and have awareness of this as the mind wandering, and bring it back. Mind wandering on thoughts of things to do. That's simply what it is. It's just a thought. So I just said here, it's an observation and awareness of the mind's habits of wandering away from being present. So we sit with this habit in our meditation practice and begin the training and development of our mind to come back. Some days we may come across our skepticism, doubts, and even feelings that this is a complete waste of time. For so long we've been clinging to old habits that are based on getting away from what we don't like and striving and grasping at what we do. So this is underlying our behaviors. And so it's, of course, expected. And that's why we establish our practice daily, so that we're freeing our mind from that. Trust comes with knowing our daily practice is developing the discipline of mind we need to best face any difficulties. We're setting ourselves up to be able to handle any difficulties when they arise in life, to find relief when we're suffering, and also to help others, and to make better, wise, conscious decisions. So our actions are going to be reflecting more of those qualities that we talked about, love and compassion and wisdom. If we start to feel frustrated, we can practice trusting that this is just a feeling. If we start to feel frustrated, we can practice trusting that this is just a feeling to allow and be with, but we still continue our daily practice. So developing trust by establishing a daily meditation practice with diligence and no matter what, we are trusting and relying on ourselves to create the causes and conditions for happiness and freedom from suffering. When we see the benefits and abilities to self-regulate emotional upsets and to react less and less, we have trust in ourselves more and more as the process grows. We trust ourselves more and more, and we trust in the process of mindfulness meditation. So like I said, we're practicing to see if it works for us. And when we get these benefits, then trust starts to develop that we can do this, and that relying on ourselves to be happy, relying on ourselves to relieve suffering, knowing that we've got the tools to do that. We identify less and less with a limited sense of self as our thoughts, our emotions, our habits, and sense and trust in our inner heart qualities. We rely on that to always be there with us. How to actually access those inner qualities is part of the practice. How we open up to those qualities, how we take refuge in those qualities that are right there, not outside of ourselves. And so that's part of our daily practice. It's nurturing and it's revealing those qualities to us. The fifth foundation is non-striving. Almost everything we do for a purpose, to get something or somewhere. But in meditation, this attitude can be a real obstacle. The tendency to driveness in our culture and society has enabled us to enjoy unprecedented standards of living, comfort, and security. However, driveness has resulted in extraordinary high levels of stress and never feeling satisfied. Part of mindfulness meditation, I'm just going to pause here for a second, is learning to just feel satisfied in the moment. That posture of just sitting and just resting on the waves of the breath can be deeply satisfying. And we have to actually, it's a skill that we have to train. We just automatically follow an impulse or a thought to grab something or to go for something without nurturing that. So that has to be something to be established as a habit, to find that satisfaction from the inside as well. I'm not saying that we don't need to strive for anything, but we don't have to come from it from a clinging place or from a desperate place. So, and that we're not going to get that permanent satisfaction from anything outside of ourselves. Because really, ultimately, what we're looking for is inside, beyond our basic needs. So, of course, our basic needs, shelter, food, those types of things. I'm saying beyond that. So we can inevitably bring this tendency into our meditation practice. Within this context, the attitude of non-striving is best understood as not straining or forcing for a result. We're loosening up expectations of our meditation practice, but this can be challenging both and liberating as we do that. Sixth attitude is acceptance. Sorry, let me just go back for a second. Okay. It's acceptance. It wasn't until I accepted myself just as I was that I was free to change. In other words, this acceptance, this recognizing what's going on inside us, and this deep, unconditional tenderness is the prerequisite to change. And I quoted Carl Rogers, who was a psychologist. He said that. So he's obviously a practitioner of mindfulness. And so again, I'll read that again. It wasn't until I accepted myself just as I was that I was free to change. In other words, this acceptance, this recognizing what's going on inside us, and this deep unconditional tenderness is the prerequisite to change. So Radical acceptance is knowing that whatever arises, whatever we can't embrace with love, imprisons us. No matter what it is, if we are at war with it, we stay in prison. It is for the freedom and healing of our own hearts that we learn to recognize and allow our inner life. The practice of meditation is described as having two wings. Recognizing is one wing, so that you actually see what is happening in the present moment. And the next wing is allowing. That's the two wings of mindfulness, where whatever is seen is held with kindness, seeing what's here and regarding it with tenderness. So simply saying yes and letting it be again and again. The seventh attitude, or the last attitude, is letting go. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. Mindfulness meditation is the embrace of any and all mind states in awareness without preferring one to another. So obviously this is about non-clinging. So it's that what Buddha talked about is the cause of suffering to be grasping and clinging, a desire. So of course you need to understand what letting go is. So cultivating the attitude of letting go or non-attachment is fundamental to the practice of mindfulness. The tendency to want to hold on to what is pleasant in our experience and to reject what is unpleasant is usually an automatic response, sometimes known as being on autopilot. To be asked to neither hold on to nor to reject experience is a challenging but key principle to freeing and training the mind. So we finished the 7 attitudes. Hopefully you get a better understanding of those. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Okay. No, I just wasn't sure if I was still on. Okay, the second foundation we're moving on to. So we've learned part of mindfulness of body. And now we're going to learn today the second foundation, mindfulness of feelings. Mindfulness practice of breath and body sensations now is going to include awareness of feelings, either pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Feelings, just let me shut my door. I think they're doing some banging here. One moment, please. So, reflecting on feelings. Our feelings are often labeled as positive, either happy, that would be happiness, confidence, joyful, brave, etc., or negative, such as sad, scared, hurt, angry. So in mindfulness practice, feelings are not good or bad. They just are what they are, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So we are conditioned to feel that the experience of some feeling is wrong. Like I was saying, fear could really take us into a tailspin of thoughts, and again, imagining something's wrong, and that type of thing can build just by the feeling of such as fear, because that can trigger our conditioning that activates those neural pathways of the looping of that thoughts, trying to get away from one. One thing is we're trying to get away from that fear. We're trying to figure it out. If we look and we're not in immediate danger, we don't know how to come back and to allow that feeling, because we're so wired to think something's wrong and to get away from that feeling. So we're going to be changing that neural pathway in our brain to respond to the feeling, of course, if we're not in immediate danger, with the principles of mindfulness. So we've been taught or conditioned by our experiences in the world from the attitudes, or I guess the messages that we we give out to one another, that you mustn't feel like that. So if somebody's feeling a certain way, that message is usually we've experienced that from others, or we've done it to others as well. You mustn't feel that way. Be positive. You should be happy. Don't be sad. Don't be scared. Don't be hurt. And that is part of our conditioning, and that the experience of some feelings is right. You should be happy, brave, lighten up, move on, get over it. So this is an automatic response to judge, and it makes it very hard to allow and be kind to ourselves when experiencing strong feelings, as we may also have feelings of shame, and that something is wrong with us or others if those feelings are there. And they think, well, there's nothing wrong, so why am I afraid? And that causes shame. So they call it the second arrow. Not only am I feeling fear, but now I'm judging the fear. That's what they call the second arrow. This can be deeply, deeply painful and cause much inner conflict. So mindfulness is a practice to awaken from that and to develop compassion and love towards those feelings. They're and so the practice of mindful allowing of feelings. This exercise, what we're going to practice today, is simply about noticing when feelings arise at the moment you are feeling it. So while we're in our practice, we're focusing on our breath, or even throughout the day, and a feeling arises. The practice here is to start to slowly train ourselves to allow, to notice when we're not, notice when we're judging, and to practice bringing ourselves back and saying, can I allow this feeling to be? If there's nothing immediate that I need to respond to, then this feeling is just a feeling, and can I allow it to be here? Can I have some warmth towards it? That's all we're doing. So it's with gentleness, non-judgment, acceptance, and even curiosity. In our practice, we can really bring our attention to it. So it's not just saying, yeah, it's okay. When we sit down, we can say, okay, now it's really strong here. So I'll keep my breath in the background and bring my attention primarily to this sensation of the feeling, just the feeling. We're not thinking about it. We're not making stories about it. We're not going into the past about what happened to us or moving into the future about what might happen to us. Bring the mind back over from that and just say, what is it that I'm feeling? What is the sensation? And where is it in the body? Investigating it with curiosity is part of the practice as well. So that it loosens its grip, that this is something terrible that I need to get away from. Because when we really bring our mindfulness to that sensation of that feeling, we'll notice that it really isn't as bad as when we're trying to get away from it. So that suppression of a feeling can make it overwhelming. By allowing, it really isn't what we think it is. So second is we're training the mind to notice and acknowledge when a strong feeling arises. Second, to recognize the habits or reactions that we have towards that feeling, to either move away or whatever habits that come with the feeling, to think about the past, stories about what we make about the feeling, so forth. So we have to recognize that wandering away from the actual experience of the sensation. Then we replace the habit to suppress the feelings or wallow in the thoughts with just simply being with the sensation and opening to slowly allow their full movement in the space of our hearts. So we're dropping from the thinking down to the sensing body. Just like we sense the breath, we're letting it come in its own rhythm, we're also letting the emotion arise like a wave similar to the breath. So we allow the breath to touch the sensation of the motion in the body with tenderness, without any effort to change how it is. We keep the breath in the back as our anchor to staying present with them. And if we feel too overwhelmed, then we bring the breath back to the forefront of our attention and just drop the feeling. So we can come in and rest on the breath, take a break, and expand out to include the sensation again. And it's a gradual opening up to feelings that we may have a long habit to get away from. I'm just going to read this poem here before we do our final practice. It Felt Love is what the poem is called, by a Persian Sufi poet, Hafiz. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. Now, last part here is Tara Brock has written this book, and she's a mindfulness teacher, a Vipassana teacher, that I like to listen to her her YouTube podcast. They're very, very good. But just quoting something here from her book. Radical acceptance is the willingness to experience ourselves and our lives as it is. And her book is called Radical Acceptance, Embracing Your Life at the Heart of a Buddha. If you're interested. In our mindfulness practice, we train the mind to pause and ask, what is really here in this moment, and can I allow it to be here just as it is? We can practice opening our hearts and relating to our body, our emotions, thoughts, and behaviors with genuine kindness and care. Any feelings or thoughts of unworthiness become conscious in the light of our awareness and lose their power over our lives and, of course, our sense of self. So homework for this week is to continue to establish your daily meditation practice. That's it. It's just making a routine that works for you. I'm making suggestions, but ultimately you have to find what works for you. I have a picture of a girl here in bed because that is where I normally do my practice when I start my day, is before I get out of bed. Just sit upright and go into my posture. Come into my body. And I told you guys what practice I do in the morning, but if you want to do 5 minutes, just I'm trying to set a time, minimum of 5 minutes of that actual developing that muscle, training your mind and concentration and intention. So just stick with the mindfulness of breath and the sensations in the body. And slowly, you can be aware that you might have strong feelings and sensations. And if you feel that you can be with them through the practice, you can try that, but not getting lost in them. So that's something that you may not have an easy time doing at this stage of learning mindfulness. So just really keep that strong development of attention and connection to the breath. And just keep record of the obstacles that are presenting themselves to trying to establish a daily meditation practice. Remember that this is just part of it. Any obstacles that come up, be mindful of what they are. We can discuss them in class, or we can discuss them personally. Or you could just use, like I said, it doesn't have to be an obstacle. It could just be, this is arising, but I'm still doing my practice for 5, 10 minutes or whatever it is, bringing my mind back, exercising that muscle. And record benefits. It's very important to really have an idea of the benefits and see the changes. That is very motivating to practice, daily practice. That's what has happened to me. I mean, at first it was more like a discipline thing, and now it's become more of a gift to myself daily. Something that I do to include how I'm caring for my others around me or whatever I'm doing, and to include myself, and to make that a regular habit to um, nurture and to rest in these qualities that feed me and that um, make me feel good, give me the ability to handle when things arise. So that's what motivates me is the benefits. But again, when I sit to do my meditation practice, if something's there, I'm looking that this is not a bad meditation, because let's just say I'm disturbed when I sit down, or my mind is busy, or I'm feeling fearful that day, or worried about something. Whatever it is, I'll still say, that is there. Can I allow it to be with kindness and calming myself by bringing my attention to my breath and slowly including the sensations. So dropping out of the worry thoughts and just saying, what, how do I open up to this, or can I open up to it and allow it just as it is? Just keep practicing um, the same attitudes. Bringing the same attitudes to no matter what is there is mainly what we're talking about. Okay, so I'm just going to open it up. If anybody wants to say anything about the obstacles or benefits so far, about in between our groups, how it's going with establishing the practice, or anything, any questions before we do our last meditation. You can turn your mics on if you want. I'm pretty sure you all have your mics still turned on, or if you want to just type something here. And here, I'll be right back. Okay, does anybody have anything to say? Or questions? Or questions about all that material we just covered? It was a lot to cover today. Okay. Okay. Roma, I think you have
Yeah,
your
it's
mic on.
me.
Is that you I can hear?
Yeah, I don't know where the sound
Okay.
is coming from.
So you're good to go? No.
It might be me because I'm in
I
the
can
car.
see, because I can see little sound waves next to the person whose sound is on. Oh, Sylvia, I can hear you. Go ahead.
It could be me. Maybe it's traffic is
What'd you say?
we're still in the park here. It could be me. Maybe it's the traffic here. There's not a lot of traffic, but because it's outdoors. Should I turn my mic
Yes.
off?
Yeah, both you and Roma's sound is on, I can see.
Okay. Let me know if you want me to
So,
turn it off.
I didn't know if you were trying to speak. That's why I just want to make sure if
Yeah, no.
you're going to turn it off.
Oh no, I said I'll turn it off if the noise is too much. I can turn it off if it's a distraction.
Yeah, if you don't have anything to say, just turn it off. Yep, because it gets feedback. Okay, it's off. Good. Okay, so nobody has anything to say. Yeah, it's better, Sylvia. Um, so then let's just move on and finish up here with a short meditation. So if you want to get comfortable, just type yes if you're ready to get going, and then we'll do our meditation. Yes, Mom, I saw your comment. Sorry, yes. The obstacles are getting easier to let go. Okay, so everybody's ready to go? Yeah, so the obstacles, we just looked at it from a different perspective today, is it's just not really an obstacle. If you're establishing a daily routine and you're choosing, okay, this is the time that works for me that I can actually sit down, no matter what arises, is just part of the mind habit and wandering. So if you're saying, well, for 5 minutes, because I'm not used to doing this, I'm still saying I'm sitting here and bringing the mind back for 5 minutes. You're developing the muscle of mindfulness. That's the whole point, that we can't expect that if we haven't developed the habit and the benefits, or we don't really enjoy it yet, it's a bit of a strain to fit it into our schedule, that the mind hasn't really settled into the routine, that type of thing, then it's just another thing, a part that you're sitting with, that when it arises, mind has wandered away, you're bringing it back. Relaxing once you bring it back, and it's like that sense of you're awake and alert, but you're not moving forward, you're not trying to rush through it, there's non-striving, you're actually resting into the breath, opening up the heart, and to maybe the feeling that's underlying the mind that's wanting to, that mind that's wandered away when you're thinking, I need to do all this stuff. What's underlying that? There's a bit of anxiety, there may be speediness, whatever it is, but we're dropping into feeling that and bringing the mind to include that with the breath. So that's simply what we're doing. Um, okay, so let's just position ourselves into our posture. Now we can just feel the body sitting here right now. Come right to the whole body. And then Feel the stability and the stillness that's already here in the body. Relaxing the body as you keep your spine straight and gently closing your eyes and bringing to mind those qualities, those foundations or attitudes of mindfulness. So reflecting on non-striving, non-judgment. This is what we're going to bring to our experience in this practice today. Acceptance, letting go, trust. Trust in those qualities in your heart. Trust the goodness inside of you that we can rest and start to sense and feel inside of ourselves. Softening the body. We're going to slowly do a visualization, but also bringing down to relax each portion or part of the body, each section of the body. So those qualities that we talked about, let's imagine them to be like a bright light above our head that we're going to be bathing as if you're sunbathing, that kind of feeling of being receptive and open to that warmth inside of you. Sensing that as a beautiful light above your head. Don't worry if it doesn't appear clearly in the mind. Just knowing it's there. And those qualities, how that is nurturing the love, the sense of love inside of you that may feel very distant at this point. By being in this receptive state, though, we're encouraging it to open, be available. Thinking of compassion, that light representing compassion and the wisdom. And taking a nice deep breath on that light above the head. And we're going to bring it down into the body, relaxing the body. So bringing it down, relax the forehead. Imagine feeling the space in the forehead or in the upper head. Feeling the eyes and softening the eyes. As if the sun touching the face, slowly touching the face. Relaxing in between the eyes. Bringing that and feeling and sensing the cheeks, the lips, the whole face, the jaw, and the chin. Feeling the head resting between the shoulders. Feeling the throat. And imagine feeling inside of the thyroid gland, starting on the right side of the thyroid gland. Imagine sensing the spaciousness and warmth there. Breathing into the thyroid gland and softening here. And moving to feel the left side of the thyroid gland. Feeling the spaciousness and the warmth on the left side of the throat and the thyroid gland. And then softening the shoulders. And in between the shoulders and the head. Feeling inside that warmth and that spaciousness here. Feeling the space in the heart. Imagine that light touching inside petals in the heart. A warmth, being able to sense and feel that warmth and that spaciousness deep inside the heart. You may want to put your hand on your heart. And feeling the upper arms, softening the upper arms, bringing the qualities into the hands and the lower arms, feeling any sensations that you might have in the hands here, right now. And making sure that your hands and your arms are just in a nice, comfortable resting position on your lap or at your side. And bringing the awareness back into the heart and feeling thymus gland. Allowing the breath to touch with tenderness any sensations that you may have in the thymus gland. Noticing what's here. What does it feel like when you bring your attention here? Is there a temperature? Does it feel spacious? Or pressure? Or perhaps not much sensation here? Maybe warmth? And then moving your attention to expand from the heart to the lungs. Imagine you can just sense the right lung right now and how the air is expanding the lung as you breathe in. And feeling that warmth, that spaciousness in the lung. And then over to the left lung. Feeling the sensations that may be here on the left side of the lung, or the left lung. Softening Include that in your awareness. Moving to now pay attention to how the upper stomach feels at this point. Imagine the light touching here and the spaciousness and warmth. Feeling on the right side of the upper stomach where the liver is. You may find that your breathing has deepened. Perhaps you can feel the breath moving down from your chest now and feeling that the stomach is now breathing or moving with the breath. Sensing on the left side of the upper stomach, you have the pancreas and the spleen, softening here and sensing that warmth and that spaciousness here. And then feeling the middle part of the stomach, the belly button, softening here, letting the breath touch whatever is here with tenderness. Inviting this part of the body to soften and to be held in kindness. Sensing the whole intestinal tract. Feeling and sensing that light, that warmth and spaciousness here. If the mind's wandered, just gently come back to feeling the breath and feeling the sensations in this region of the body. Moving down to the lower abdomen, below the belly button, to include and sensing the reproductive area, starting on the right side, right ovary, fallopian tube, and inside the uterus here. Allowing whatever's here to be with warmth and kindness. Moving to the left side, left ovary, fallopian tube, uterus. Softening the whole lower abdomen, including the lower back. Moving to feel and sense the pelvic floor, the hips, starting on the right side. Really feel deep into the hips, that warmth and that spaciousness, softening here. Any contraction here, just letting that rest. And on the left side, left hip, going deep inside here, warmth and spaciousness. Feeling both of the upper legs, right side and left side. And the muscles in the thighs, going deep inside and softening there. Imagine the light coming down the legs now, as if it's changed into liquid light, free-flowing into the knees, softening the knees in the front and in the back of the knees, down into the calves. You may have a sensation that you feel in the legs, perhaps a warmth, maybe feeling some numbness to a tingling or a warmth. Perhaps there's not much sensation in the legs, but that's okay too. Just softening here, feeling the ankles, right and left side, and coming right down into the feet. Just rest with your eyes closed, sensing the feet, sensing the contact or the connection that you have with your seat or lying on the floor. Feeling the weight of the whole body, the aliveness and the sensations in the body, the whole body, especially the feet. And just feel your heels of the feet, the balls of the feet, the top, and moving through each toe, starting with the big toe, the second, the third, fourth, and the small toes. And now, feeling the whole body as just a field of sensations, moving and changing. And the breath, just bring your awareness to rest on the breath. And the breath, just bring your awareness to rest on the breath for 1 minute. If the mind wanders, bring it down to just sense the breath, as if we're waiting for the breath to come in, with a softness and an openness, and a receptivity of that warmth. Like a flower, just sitting in the sun right now, and taking in that warmth. Breath by breath. Stay connected to that sensation and energy in the body. And the breath, and each breath being different. Sometimes we notice the breath will be nice and deep and long. Sometimes the breath may be short, tight. You may include any feelings here. Just take a moment to see if there's any sense of a feeling here. And sense if you're open to that feeling. whatever that feeling may be. You may classify it immediately to be, well, I feel good or I feel bad. But feeling actually the sensation or the quality of the feeling rather than the category of it being bad or good. And just for a moment, can you soften a little bit more and open to the space in the heart to allow that feeling fully to be here for 1 minute? You may come across to feel even just a sense of tenderness or rawness in the heart, as if the light of the sun can touch that feeling in your heart. And the waves of the breath will touch that feeling with tenderness and kind of okay, guys, no problem. So you guys can go. We're finished the meditation now. We started very late today, and we had a lot to cover, so apologize, but have a really good evening, and good luck with everything this week. If you can't access those files, just let me know as well. I know